on the Affordable Care Act and ran on preserving people's health care. They could have gone one step further and said, oh, and we will also fight for Medicare for all. So everybody has health care. They chose not to, but that was an effective strategy. I don't know what they're going to do in 2024, what their approach, their campaign's focus and theme is going to be, because unity, that general message isn't going to work in the immediate, like you had that immediate aftermath of Trump in 2020. He's removed, he's deplatformed on some platforms. He's not getting the same attention that he used to. Sure, he's got these indictments. People on his side certainly aren't going to care. Who knows if moderates are going to care if really it just comes down to their pocketbooks? Because a lot of people, even though they didn't like how he did it, they liked Trump because of the tax credits in the immediate windfall they saw, not realizing that the tax cuts for individual filers had a sunset provision after 10 years, while the corporate cuts are permanent.
There it is, Jordan. You know what they're gonna run on? They're gonna run on, well, we're not as bad as the other guy. Democrats 2024. That's what they're running on. And just one more, people don't understand how serious this is. A mother talked to the Associated Press, and this is what she had to say. The eligibility determination have created headaches for Jennifer, a 28-year-old who was told in April that she no longer qualified for Medicaid because Arkansas had incorrectly determined her income was above the limit. She got that resolved, but was then told her 5-year-old son was being dropped from Medicaid because she had requested his cancellation. Something that never happened, she said. So you know what? It's mothers like her, fathers like her, families like her from across the country who are going to continue to be impacted by this heartless nonsense of stripping away swiftly healthcare from poor and working class people. This is part of the moral decay in the United States of America. In a heartfelt story right now, let me collect myself. This is communally sad, and this is also a personal note. Mayor Gus Newport, the former mayor of Berkeley, California, died on Saturday, June 17th. I was very close to Mayor Gus Newport, along with many others, people such as the one and only brother Danny Glover, who you see pictured, or who you just recently saw pictured with Mayor Gus Newport on the campaign trail for Senator Bernie Sanders. In this headline right here, in the story that was the article, the opinion piece written in Common Dreams really captures the essence of Mayor Newport. Remembering Gus Newport, a progressive titan, the former Berkeley mayor's record of accomplishments from civil rights activism to groundbreaking political initiatives to far-sighted community economic development programs to global solidarity and elder statesman leadership could fill volumes. And I want to thank Chuck Idelson so much for writing such a deep piece about the mayor. And I'm having one of those, but I just talked to him moments because I did just recently talk to the mayor about 2 weeks ago. We talked about politics, of course. We also talked about a book that he was working on and also a movie project that he had going with Mr. Danny Glover. In his opinion piece in Common Dreams, Chuck Idelson describes Mayor Newport as a titan. He really got that right. Former Berkeley, California Mayor Gus Newport, a titan of progressive politics in the late 20th century, social justice champion who worked with Malcolm X, and a lifelong humanitarian and internationalist, died June 17th, which was this past Saturday in San Francisco. He was 88 years old. Gus was the embodiment of an adage of a life well lived. His record of accomplishments from civil rights activism to groundbreaking political initiatives to far-sighted community economic development programs to global solidarity and elder statesman leadership could fill volumes. Now, one of Mayor Newport's closest friends, Mr. Danny Glover, who's an activist and a humanitarian, described Mayor Newport this way in an interview with Progressive Magazine back in 2020. The beauty of Gus is that I trust him to elevate our story. When you spend time with someone with Gus's history and character and listen to his stories, you are changed. I hope that a little of my story could resonate with others the way Gus's stories have resonated with me and so many around the world. Certainly, this segment, we can't do enough justice to the memory and history of Mayor Newport, but we want to give you some time to hear him in his own words. I got a chance to serve on a committee with Mayor Newport. This committee was for the DNC to bring DNC members together after the tumultuous 2016 presidential election cycle. And the mayor served on this committee, and here's some of what he had to say while serving.
I was extremely pleased when Larry called me and said that Senator Bernie had asked would I serve on this. I wasn't expecting anything like that, although I campaigned for him. Danny Glover and I campaigned in the South for him and in other places. I consider Bernie one of the greatest people I've ever known in my life. He and I served as mayors at the same time. He, Dennis Kucinich, and I used to be called on to talk at many of the Eastern universities. And I remember when he threw his hat in to run for governor of Vermont, he invited me out to campaign with him. And representatives of UPI and AP were in his office the first morning that we were going out to campaign. And the question was, Bernie, why would you, a Jew from Brooklyn, who's a socialist, invite Gus Newport, a former black nationalist and a socialist from Berkeley, to campaign in a 97% white state? And Bernie said, because we're going to talk about the issues.
Because we are going to talk about the issue. That was Mayor Gus Newport. It was a Unity Reform Commission that was formed as an agreement after the tumultuous 2016 presidential election. It was formed by Senator Bernie Sanders and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who was the nominee in 2016. There's a song with lyrics referring to how the good die young, but on rare occasions, we are blessed with the good living long, vibrant lives. The Honorable Gus Newport certainly fits in that category. Condolences to him and his family and his closest friends. I will miss him very, very much. That is our time today on Unboss. I hope you enjoyed us. So glad to have Jordan with us today, as always. We can't wait till he'll be back with us again. And to all of you who tuned in. And you know what I want you to do about this time, no matter what's going on in life or in this world, I always want you to keep the faith. But more importantly, I want you to keep the fight. Until next time. Welcome back to the watch list. I'm Rayyvana filling in for JR for the next couple weeks while he takes a much deserved vacation. I hope you all had a wonderful long weekend. We've got a lot of stories to catch up on today. We're gonna get into the RFK Jr. versus actual scientist nonsense that's been going on. We're gonna talk about the submarine where the explorers, as they were referring to them as, still inside, have about 40 hours left of oxygen. We're gonna talk about some more fun stories than that as well. And we're also gonna touch on Andrew Tate being formally indicted for sex trafficking. And joining me today to get into all of that is Wosny Lambre, a TYT contributor. Woz, thank you so much for joining me today.
Really excited to be on. I didn't realize JR was on vacation. I thought he was just being extra black and taking an extra day for Juneteenth, but he is on a well-deserved vacation, so I'm happy for the good brother.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, are you ready to get into this first story?
Let's go.
All right, everybody, let's watch this.
Wi-Fi radiation does all kinds of bad things, including causing cancer.
Wi-Fi radiation causes cancer.
From your cell phone. I mean, there's cell phone tumors. You know that. I mean, I'm representing hundreds of people who have cell phone tumors behind the ear. It's always on the ear that you favor with your cell phone. Oh, and you know, we have the science. So if anybody lets us in front of a jury, it will be over. You know,
so what is the number? Because a lot of people use
there's
cell
a lot of people with it. They're glioblastomas. That's the kind of cancers that they get. But cancer's not the worst thing. They also, you know, it opens up, Wi-Fi radiation opens up your blood-brain barrier.
Okay. Wow, that was a lot. But Joe Rogan is apparently back on his anti-vax crusade. He invited anti-vax conspiracy theorist and current presidential candidate, and somehow not the worst one, RFK Jr., and some of the misinformation Joe Rogan gave a platform to, he was using to promote old classic anti-vax ideas like that vaccines cause autism. So let's take a look at that nonsense right now.
There's aluminum in those vaccines, which, you know, operates along the same biological pathways and does the same kind of damage. It's extremely neurotoxic. And then there's other things, lots of other toxics in the vaccines that, you know, could be responsible. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of scientific studies that looked at it, but nobody ever reports them. And everybody will say, oh, there's no study that shows autism and vaccines are connected. That's just crazy. You know, that's people who are not looking at science. So anyway,
but they want to say that. They want to say that. It's
well,
like
it's just part of the religion.
Yes,
right.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
it really does seem like a religion.
And the heretics have to be burned at the stake.
Yes.
They have to be humiliated, silenced, destroyed.
Personally, I don't like to take my medical advice from someone who sounds like they're actively drowning, but that's just me. Apparently, Joe Rogan differs from me in that regard. But that is, and really unfortunately, only the beginning of RFK Jr.'s crazy theories. He appeared on Jordan Peterson's show, and apparently he styled himself after Alex Jones when he claimed that chemicals we are exposed to are turning our kids trans.
I've seen the climate apocalypse use fear to induce something approximating the same kind of level of tyranny, as far as I'm concerned, that characterized the vaccine lockdown. Help me sort that out and understand where you stand.
How much of that is coming from chemical exposures, including a lot of the sexual dysphoria that we're seeing? I mean, they're swimming through a soup of toxic chemicals today. Put atrazine in a tank full of frogs. It will chemically castrate and forcibly feminize every frog in there, and 10% of the frogs, the male frogs, will turn into fully viable females able to produce viable eggs. If it's doing that to frogs, it could. There's a lot of other evidence that it's doing it to human beings as well.
Forced feminization is such an interesting term to use while you're styling yourself as a scientist, and you're talking about frogs who don't have a concept of femininity and masculinity. But nonetheless, there's some more. But Woz, I want to let you jump in on this nonsense. Is this a guy that you would go to for medical advice?
You know, The anti-vax stuff, I think the further people get away from the pandemic and all the deaths and all the heartache that was with it, I honestly think that kind of stuff will become less toxic to people the further we get away from the actual, the horrors that we endured as a people during the pandemic. But people turning into women from this stuff, like I just don't understand that. And then like people who are anti-trans say it's all fake anyway. This guy's saying that you're actually going to turn into a woman, whereas the people who would normally go for this are like, no, like you don't get it. Like these people are faking it. It's all a mass hysteria. And it's not real. But yeah, I don't think this guy is exactly the most formidable candidate I've ever seen. No, I'm not seeing it, Ray.
Yeah, and that's saying something considering the the array of candidates that we currently have, particularly.
Yeah, he's making Mike Pence look like Abe Lincoln, damn near. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, and there was, let's get into the rest of the story because he got a lot of backlash, not just from us here on the watch list, but on Twitter too. So let's pull up this tweet from vaccine scientist Peter Hotez. He tweeted this, calling out the podcast. Spotify has stopped even sort of trying to stem Joe Rogan's vaccine misinformation. It's really true, Anna Merlon, just awful. And from all the online attacks I'm receiving after this absurd podcast, it's clear many actually believe this nonsense. And the response to this was, I felt like I was losing my mind the entire time I was watching this go down this weekend. Joe Rogan replied to him and challenged him to a debate. This person who invented a vaccine, who invented a patent-free vaccine for COVID, to debate RFK Jr., who thinks that vaccines cause autism, which was only shown in one study where the doctor who proved it in the study later had his medical license revoked for fraud specifically with that study. Anyway, Joe Rogan wants apparently to waste the doctor's time. He says, Peter, if you claim what RFK Jr. is saying is, quote, misinformation, just remember what you heard the guy say. Misinformation is in quotes. I am offering you $100,000 to the charity of your choice if you're willing to debate him on my show with no time limit. I could prove that what he said is false. He said that your phone is making your brain leak out of your ear. I've had a phone since I was 12 years old, and my brain, I'd like to think, is still fully intact. So $100,000, please, to stop Cop City. But of course, like the good clout chaser he is, Elon Musk immediately jumps in and says he's afraid of a public debate because he knows he's wrong, as if a trained scientist and researcher is expected to be, as groomed to be good at debating as a politician. But then the result of this was that Dr. Hotez was doxxed by a deranged anti-vaxxer Joe Rogan fan who accosted him outside his house about debating RFK Jr. So let's watch.
Okay. Oh, are you Peter Hotez?
I am. Hi.
Nice to meet you.
How are you?
Hey. So why are you not gonna debate RFK on Joe Rogan's podcast?
Oh, come on, that's harassing.
I'm just curious.
What?
Nothing hostile. Just curious.
I haven't said anything one way or the other.
I mean, are you planning on doing it?
He just invited me, so we'll see.
And I think you should, though.
Well, we'll give it some.
Okay.
Okay.
And what do you have to say to people who think they were vaccine injured?
Come on.
Anything for them?
Don't come to my house.
I mean, do you have anything to say to people that think? Do you have anything to say to people? Yeah. I mean, do you think vaccine injuries are real, Peter? Peter, it's just a question. Settle the science now. On a safari to go vaccinate more kids?
All right, Guy, first of all, the way you're heavy breathing into your phone to make this video, I think that there's other health risks that you should be worried about when it comes to yourself. Second of all, how dare you walk up to him and say, are you Peter Hotez? You stalked him. You went to his house. You knew what he looked like. Of course, that's Peter Hotez, you idiot. That's what you're there to do. I mean, Woz, this is so absurd. And of course, I haven't seen yet that Joe Rogan has denounced this when obviously him and Elon Musk are the factor that that incited this crazy guy to just show up at this doctor's house on Father's Day.
Yeah, I mean, the level of dedication to this stuff is kind of mind-numbing. Like, I know a lot of people, a decent amount of people, by the way, and this is the thing that I think gets lost on people. There's a certain level of diversity across the board in income level, race, and education of people who don't want to get vaccinated, right? And so I ended up knowing a lot of these people, and they just went out of their way to avoid the vaccine mandates. I don't know anybody who was like, I want to find Fauci or any other guy who advocated for vaccine usage and its ability to fight the ravages of the pandemic. Like, this guy is just especially deranged, and it makes me think about all these cases across America where this woman was going to get a toy from her neighbor's house and she got shot to death for doing so. And these jokers, they could just run up on people and it's all good. They're gonna run up on the wrong one day, like for real. Like, normal, regular people get shot at, get killed for regular everyday interactions in this country, and these folks think they could just run up on people and harass them and talk crazy. That's the wildest part about that to me.
Right. If that doctor decided he wanted to stand his ground to this person who's accosting him on his own property, he probably would have been well within his legal rights to do so. So yeah, that harasser, I believe his name on Twitter was something like "I protect kids," which is suspicious in and of itself.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah, he's lucky that didn't happen. But someone who is not lucky was Donald Trump when he was interviewed on Fox News. Thought it was going to be a softball interview, but it was not that. So let's all watch this.
In 2016, you said that. I'm going to surround myself with only the best and most serious people.
Well, I did do that.
This time, your Vice President, Mike Pence, is running against you.
Yeah.
Your Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, she's running against you. Your former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, said he's not supporting you. You mentioned National Security Advisor John Bolton. He's not supporting you either. You mentioned Attorney General Bill Barr, says you shouldn't be president again, calls you the consummate narcissist and troubled man. You recently called Barr a gutless pig. Your second Defense Secretary is not supporting you, called you irresponsible. This week, you and your White House called your White House Chief of Staff, John Kelly, weak and ineffective and born with a very small brain. You called your acting White House Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney, a born loser. You called your first Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, dumb as a rock, and your first Defense Secretary, James Mattis, the world's most overrated general. You called your White House Press Secretary, Kayleigh Canadian, milquetoast, and multiple times you've referred to your Transportation Secretary, Elaine Chao, as Mitch McConnell's China-loving wife. So, why did you hire all of them in the first place?
Bret Baier had all the receipts as to why Trump is a fake friend. But he really did push back a lot in this interview. It was surprising. Unlike Sean Hannity, he wasn't throwing him any softball questions. And things got really heated, as you would expect, after Bret Baier listed all of the insults Trump has hurled at people who he used to support. But it got particularly heated when Bret Baier told Trump that he did not win the 2020 election.
First of all, I won in 2020 by a lot, okay? Let's get that straight. I won in 2020.
You know that this,
and if you look at all of the tape in the election,
you lost the 2020 election.
Bret,
there was not significant widespread.
We're trying to get recounts, real recounts, not just numbers of votes.
Widespread corruption. There was not a sense of that. There were lawsuits, more than 50 of them, by your lawyers, some in front of judges that you appointed.
Look at Wisconsin.
That came out with no evidence.
Wisconsin has practically admitted it was rigged. Other states are doing the same right now, and it's continuing on.
Reviews of every potential case of voter fraud in 6 battleground states, and they found fewer than 475 cases.
You know why? Because they didn't look at the right things.
Okay,
Bret.
are you going to be? This is how you're going to.
First, I want to say that Trump has entered a new era of gross. I've never seen him look that bad on camera, and that's Donald Trump, who is notorious for looking bad on camera. So not everything going great in his personal life. But he really does shoot himself in the foot when Baier asks why he didn't just hand over all the classified documents to the National Archives. So let's watch.
The only way NARA could ever get this stuff, this back, would be, please, 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 could we have it back?
And they
please,
asked for that.
because they have no. We
They
were
did ask
talking.
for it.
No, and
they said,
I gave
"Can you
them
give the
some,
documents back?"
And we were talking.
And then they said they went to DOJ to subpoena you to get them
which
back.
they've never done before.
Right.
And in
But
all
why not
fairness,
just hand them over then?
because I had boxes. I want to go through the boxes and get all my personal things out. I don't want to hand that over to Nara yet. And I was very busy, as you've sort of seen.
Yeah, but
I've
according
been
to
very,
the
very
indictment,
busy.
you then tell this aide to move to other locations after telling your lawyers to say you'd fully complied with the subpoena when you hadn't.
But before I send boxes over, I have to take all of my things out. These boxes were interspersed with all sorts of things.
I had to get all my things out of the boxes, like my emotional support, tactical invasion plans for Iran. It's just so rich. But he obviously, as you can tell from those past couple clips, was antagonistic to Baier's hardball inquiries. And most of the interview just ended up becoming him spewing insults, like when he started saying that Fox News's viewership is down.
Continuation.
More independent voters watch Fox News than any other TV source.
A lot less than used to watch it.
They do watch. Those voters
But a lot less, Bret.
they usually make up.
I'm sorry, Wes, this is so good. He's just like a really angry child. Actually, no, there's not that many viewers, not anymore.
But a lot less, Bret.
A lot less.
You know, man, this is just more evidence for anybody who wants to understand what's going on. There's just more evidence that Fox, as an organization, is trying to get off of the Trump train. They want to get off at the first available stop, and they're doing their best to sort of grease the skids in that way, right? Like they want to get off of Trump, and it's not because he has bad policies, he's irresponsible, he's unlikable, he's erratic. Well, no, that's it. It is because he's erratic, that he can't be counted upon. He's not predictable. He's not a great partner in that way. Like, you want to know that the people that you're partnering with to transfer our nation's wealth to the people who are already richest people in the world. If you want to make sure that you gut Social Security and Medicare, you want to deregulate every single industry to nothing. You need a decently reliable partner within those endeavors. And Trump has just proven, since he got off them damn escalator stairs in 2015, that he's not reliable. And Fox and the powers that be are like, bro, we need another horse, man. This guy he's kicking us off every single time. We can't ride this guy.
Right, and I joked at the top of the story that Trump is a fake friend, but honest to God, he's a fake friend, and that's not the person that, Fox News is ever gonna be able to have in their pocket. He is a wild card. He is honestly a petty bitch. That is a man who will stab you, not in the back, but in the chest if you just look at him wrong, and anytime, and I'm sure this interview has just sealed that for his relationship with Fox. But yeah, it really does seem like they're more squarely in the DeSantis camp after this. Although I wouldn't describe him as, a rational actor or a sane individual. I think that DeSantis has shown is anything but that. But he is, he's the person who's going to deregulate. Like you said, this is the person that's going to give the kickbacks to their backers, to their advertisers. So that's the person that they would want in their pocket.
And folks need to remember that before the sort of momentum had built to a crescendo behind Trump's campaign, and he ultimately demolished all of the comers within the GOP primary, they backed Jeb with the exclamation point. They backed Ted Cruz. They thought Marco Rubio was, he was young and exciting, and he was a nice Latin lover, and they were excited about all of those prospects, and everything failed, crashed, and burned. And ultimately, they closed ranks and was like, come on, we're not gonna support Hillary freaking Clinton. Obviously, Donald Trump's a joke, but they just weren't gonna do that. But they did support his competitors before he vanquished them. So this is just a repeat of that exact same process.
Right, and he did definitely vanquish them. I mean, Jeb, please clap Bush, was not well positioned to be in a debate against Donald Trump. All right, but that's all the time we have for now. We got to go to a break, but we'll be back with some more stories, especially this Andrew Tate story I'm excited to talk about on the other side, so stick around.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one.
Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
What's happening? I'm Dr. Rashad Richey, host of Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey. Here's the bottom line. I play no games about policy, period. Too many people's lives are at stake. So here's what I do. I challenge conservative ideology that hinders the growth of this country. I make sure we place our facts in proper context, and I have no problem debating anyone on a position that I have. Progressives have the ideas to change the world, but when you really look at it, progressives have always change this world for the better. I want you to tune into my new show, Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey, right here on the TYT Network, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time. I'll see you there.
Everything that we've accomplished over the years is because of our members who've allowed us to remain independent of corporate interests and reach 20 million followers. Now is the time to bring as many people into the progressive movement as possible. We're inviting you to be the change and help bring a community-powered progressive change machine to life. Details are at tyt.com/change. If you're a member, thank you. We need you to remain so. If you're one of the thousands of viewers out there who's not a member yet, the time has come for you to join now. We need you more than ever. tyt.com/change.
Welcome back to the watch list. I'm sad you all missed us reminiscing on Jeb Bush's sad and pathetic campaign for president. But I am excited to hear what you all had to say, what you're thinking about these stories we covered. So let's get into it. Let's look at the TYT members section. Stiff Upper Lib says it is so sad to see RFK Jr. seeing what his father was, and this is who he is. Please make it stop. It is. It is really pathetic. And we could only show you so much of the crazy stuff he had to say, but his anti-vax positions started way before COVID, and they are so perverse. It is really sad.
Also, maybe there's room for a redemptive arc like his father. People got to remember that his dad was very close to the FBI in his capacity, working with the DOJ, wiretapping people like Martin Luther King Jr. For God's sake, like that was Bobby Kennedy and his doing. And then later on in his life, he kind of became a baby mini socialist, and then they killed his ass for it. But I'm just saying, there might be redemption around the corner, guys.
It would be nice to see a late in life change of heart from RFK Jr. Although I'll say that man is never going to be the president of the United States. Let's turn over to Twitch. Viral says he looked at that jacket and thought, yes, I will appear in public in this. And Marley Baby said, yes, we get Ray. I'm so happy. Oh, thank you. Yeah, you're stuck with me for the rest of this week and next week. And let's look over at YouTube. Roy Dunn says Musk does know Twitter is on phones now, right? I don't know. Catnip Fumar says the old leaky brain syndrome. Yeah, it gets us all apparently. And Amy Jarrell says, I thought it was unbossed for a second there. LOL, a couple weeks with Rayyvana sounds like the best summer break ever. Oh, you guys are so sweet. I really appreciate that. I do. Especially because not all the comments are so nice. So it's nice to read all the ones that are nice. That being said, let's jump into this next story, which is also a little bit of good news.
Hi, any statesman? There's no evidence against me. Is this the end of your career, Andrew?
Absolutely not. This case file is empty.
done nothing wrong. They know we've done nothing wrong. The case file is completely
Gentlemen, ask the police what evidence there is against me. Wait. Ask the police what evidence they have against me. It's nothing. They're holding me because of media pressure. You are okay? They're persecuting me because I'm rich and successful. Do not get rich in Romania.
Well, actually, apparently the police and the prosecutors have quite a bit of evidence against you, because the disgraced Tate brothers have finally been charged with human trafficking and rape following a months-long investigation in Romania. I also want to say it's ironic that he said don't get rich in Romania when they specifically went to Romania because they have lax laws that they enforce. So I guess they're getting their just desserts. But let's get into some more of the facts about the indictment from NBC News.
According to Romanian officials, 3 others will also be charged in connection to human trafficking, including Andrew's brother, Tristan. A spokesperson for the Tate brothers confirmed their indictment to NBC News. Both brothers deny all allegations. The 2 were remanded into custody back in December before being released under house arrest in March. They are currently waiting for a trial date to be set.
Now, don't expect any news on them being found guilty anytime soon because a trial could take a significant amount of time, apparently up to several years due to how the Romanian legal system works. But Romanian officials detailed the Tate brothers' criminal enterprises. From the Associated Press, Romania's anti-organized crime agency known as DCOT said the 7 alleged victims were recruited with false declarations of love and taken to Romania's Ilfov County, where they were forced to take part in pornography. Women were allegedly controlled by, quote, intimidation, constant surveillance, and claims they were in debt, prosecutors said. And Andrew Tate has been extremely open about his trafficking techniques, even creating a program to teach other men how to sex traffic women. In a now deleted portion of his website, Tate pitched his tactics to other dudes, describing to a T what he's been accused of. In his own words, ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Tate, I've been running a webcam studio for nearly a decade. I've had over 75 girls work for me, and my business model is different than 99% of webcam studio owners. Over 50% of my employees were actually my girlfriends at the time, and of all my girlfriends, none were in the adult entertainment industry before they met me. Now, prosecutors also alleged that Tate physically abused and intimidated the women, and one of Tate's victims spoke to Vice News about her experience.
When we moved into the bigger apartment, that's when more girls started coming into the apartment to work for Andrew. And that's when I just witnessed so much, like verbal, physical, not just to me, but the other women involved. And it just got worse over time. Andrew would call us lazy hoes. I saw him smack girls with a belt because she wanted a lion. He used to strangle us as well.
And I want to remind you all that there is a legion of incels online defending the man that she just described, the horrible things he would do. But speaking of the horrible things he would do, it should be unsurprising to everybody that he's also accused of attempting to recruit Romanian girls as young as 16 via Instagram. BBC News Bucharest reported that Daria is one of 2 teenagers who have described to the BBC how Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan approached them online, apparently using a standard formula. It was obvious we were high school girls, Daria said. We had our high school in our bio and everything. I think he was just trying to find girls who were as innocent or naive as possible, in my opinion. So he's currently being investigated by that. There could be further charges coming down the road as far as attempts to sex traffic minors and actually sex trafficking minors, as well as being investigated for tax fraud, which is another thing he described in detail and on his website and in many videos, how he does very effectively. So was for so long, Andrew and Tristan Tate have been, screaming their innocence. They're still saying it now that they've been formally indicted. They've got a legion of losers echoing their sentiments online, but it really seems like the consequences are coming.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, Ray, how the cops ever arrested anybody before the internet. I mean, their jobs are so freaking easy these days. These people will just snitch on themselves. They will document everything, overshare, even when they are participating in extremely vile acts. Yeah, this guy is pretty grotesque. I'm happy that he got caught, obviously. He's inflicted pain on a lot of young women, which is horrible, and he should pay his penance for it. I think the unfortunate part, Ray, as you mentioned, is that oftentimes when these cult leaders, and let's be serious, these manosphere dudes, they're baby cult leaders. And oftentimes when a cult leader gets in trouble, the flock, they sort of double down and dig in. It's like, no, the authorities are just coming because he's spewing so much truth. They just can't allow this much truth to be spewed. And so all of these, basically alienated and disaffected young men, they're not going to seek help and get better. They're not gonna have a mea culpa behind this arrest. Unfortunately, a lot of these guys are gonna still be miserable and just horrible members of society, still adhering to this dude's beliefs. To me, that's the worst part. It's nice that he's gonna individually pay his penance and go to jail, but the people who supported him and enriched this guy and still have a lot of problems, they're not gonna seek help behind this.
Exactly, and you're right about the cult leaders. I mean, we still see former members of the NXIVM cult protest outside Keith Raniere's prison cell. They've been recently going on podcasts to try to spread the message of how the justice system did this cult leader wrong. And it exactly mirrors what the Andrew Tate supporters are doing. And hopefully over time, the supporters dwindle in numbers like we see it with a lot of these other cults. Or
hopefully over time, these people are able to get, I don't know, a hand job or something. Get some love in your life, please, for the love of God. Get some human touch, compassion in your life. I promise you, it's a lot better than complaining about women online, guys.
Right, and I promise you that complaining about women online is not gonna land you anywhere.
It's not. No woman has ever said, oh my God, this one guy, I met him. He was just bitching on online forums about how horrible women are. And I just couldn't wait to go on a date with him and get in the sack with him. It's never happened, ever.
Right. Exactly. I mean, even Andrew Tate had to pretend to love these women to get them to date him in the first place. He had to pretend to be nice and a good boyfriend. And it wasn't until after they were within his grasp that he exposed who he really was. So the personality that he's selling to these young men isn't the personality that got him women in the first place. But I was about to say, let's dive into this next story. It feels like a little inappropriate. It's not funny. It's actually very kind of sad and serious. So let's get into this next story.
Desperate search and rescue operation is now underway in the North Atlantic this morning after a mini sub disappeared on its way to the wreck of the Titanic. It's operated by the US-based company called OceanGate Expedition.
The expedition began with at most 96 hours of oxygen on board for the 5 people hoping to view the Titanic's wreckage.
It is a remote area, and it is a challenge to conduct a search in that remote area.
Now rescuers are racing against the clock to find the missing submersible.
First, I want to say OceanGate, horrible name for a ship that you don't want anything bad to happen to. Putting gate at the end of something, historically has usually been things that ended in disaster. But I digress. The search is underway for a submarine that went missing 2 days ago on a voyage to explore the wreckage of the Titanic. 5 passengers are on board, and as of right now, experts say the submarine has less than 40 hours of breathable air left inside. Last year, though, CBS reporter David Pogue did a story on the vessel, and he had some serious doubts about its structural integrity.
An experimental submersible vessel that has not been approved or certified by any regulatory body and could result in physical injury, disability, emotional trauma, or death. Where do I sign? Oh, take your shoes off. That's customary. Okay. Wow.
Inside, the sub has about as much room as a minivan.
So this is not your grandfather's submersible. We only have one button, that's it. It should be like an elevator.
You know, it shouldn't take a lot of skill.
The Titan is the only 5-person sub in the world that can reach Titanic depths, 2.4 miles below the sea. It's also the only one with a toilet, sort of. And yet, I couldn't help noticing how many pieces of this sub seemed improvised.
We can use these off-the-shelf components. I got these from Camper World. We run the whole thing with this game controller.
Come on!
That's right. The Submarine is controlled by a game controller. I've since learned that that's pretty standard for this type of vessel. However, that game controller costs $29.99 right now on Amazon, and I wouldn't use a controller like that to control my PS4. I definitely wouldn't trust it to control an entire submarine vessel. But the man that you saw leading that tour is OceanGate CEO Stockton Rush, and he's one of the 5 passengers who's currently missing in the submarine. Reporter David Pogue was interviewed yesterday following the sub's disappearance, and he gave his analysis as to what might have happened.
What do you think happened here? From having been in it and having experienced it, and you talk about the mechanical issues, I know it's purely a guess, but what is your best guess?
I can tell you exactly. There's only a few possibilities. So this thing has 7 different ways to return to the surface, different ways of releasing ballast or inflating air balloons or using the propellers. So there's backups of backups of backups. So if it is not at the surface, then only one of 2 things could have happened. Either it snagged on something, like a big fishing net or even part of the Titanic, or there was a leak, in which case it would implode instantly and it's over. So if you want to look optimistically at it, they lost power, but they have 3 more days of air and they're bobbing on the surface somewhere, and we just can't find them because they don't have power.
He also gave the pretty grim details that recovery might not even be possible if they find the ship.
Yeah, I found it interesting that the Coast Guard there basically said this is a 2-pronged search. 1, potentially 2.5 miles beneath the sea, or 2, maybe somewhere at the top. And this area is so remote, it's possible.
But one problem with what the Coast Guard said was there's only 3 operating subs in the world that can go to that depth. Okay, so even if they find our sub with the ping, with the sonar, there's absolutely nothing they can do about it. There's no way to bring it back to the surface. There's no way to let them escape. That the hatch, by the way, is sealed with 17 bolts from the outside. So there's no way to escape when you're inside to get out without a crew on the outside letting you out.
Things are looking pretty grim. And honestly, I've seen a lot of experts say that the best case scenario for these 5 people in the submarine is that there was a pressure issue and that they died instantly, which would be a lot, apparently, obviously less horrific than having to wait out the rest of the breathable air. But let's get into how this voyage was sold to anybody and who in their right mind would get in this vessel. From CBS News, OceanGate billed the trip as an opportunity to, quote, become one of the few to see the Titanic with your own eyes. The company said the fee for securing a seat on the vessel was $250,000, according to its website. The trip wasn't billed as mere tourism, however, with OceanGate noting that each of its dives has a scientific purpose. Now, we have the images, as you just saw, from the passengers who were confirmed being on the ship. Among them is British businessman Hamish Harding, Pakistani businessman Shahzada Dawood and his teenage son Suleiman, and French explorer Paul-Henri Nargeolet. And as we mentioned earlier, Stockton Rush, the CEO of OceanGate, the company that operates the vessel, is also on it. I do want to mention that there was another tragedy at sea that happened earlier from CNN. The sinking of a packed migrant boat off the coast of Greece may be, quote, the worst tragedy ever in the Mediterranean Sea, according to the EU Commissioner of Home Affairs, Ylva Johansson. Dozens of people were killed and hundreds more left missing when the boat traveling from the coastal city of Tobruk in Libya to Italy capsized off the coast of Greece earlier this week. True toll of this disaster is yet to become clear. And Woz, it seems to me a little upsetting, the amount of money and resources being put into recovering the submarine of 5 people versus being put towards the mission of recovering the many more migrants in the Mediterranean Sea. I've seen a lot of people saying that, it's the trip to go to the Titanic was $250,000. These are exceptionally rich individuals. So it seems like the diversion of resources towards them, it's definitely classist at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, as usual in our society and world at large, money talks. I mean, look, man, I think it's horrible what's happening to those people in that what did they call it? A sub flotation device? You're not allowed to call it a submarine. Like, it's just horrible. I can't for the life of me understand why they just want to stare at the Titanic and risk their lives for the pleasure of doing so, for just looking at a boat that's 100 years old. I don't understand that impulse, but obviously it sucks anytime somebody has to pass. And these migrants trying to make their way to a better life after being in a war-torn country, probably. By the way, war-torn and messed up because of policies enacted and inflicted upon them by the West. That's pretty sad. It's pretty awful. And obviously it's something that we should take note of. But I don't know. I feel bad for these guys in the submarine, Ray. But what like you guys paid $250,000 to get in that thing. Like, that seems just insane to me. It's not even like these guys were working and they had to use equipment that didn't allow them to properly do their jobs. Like, these people signed up to do this in this rinky-dink, janky-ass apparatus. It's kind of crazy.
Right. They definitely signed up knowing there was a massive risk. They had to sign waivers that they were aware that of the massive risk it posed to their lives and safety. And they watched countless tests of this vessel fail and still willingly entered into it, which for the pursuit of what? To see something that you could see in a movie, to see something you can see pictures of. And they keep calling them explorers, like they're, 15th century sailors. I feel for them. I want them to be alive. I want them to be found. I want them to be safe. But there is a huge discrepancy between them and the people who are literally fleeing for their lives, who are just they're not even being treated as human in the media. They're not being treated as human by those European countries when they get there. Particularly Italy has a long history of refusing to accept these migrants. And that's the reason why there was that many people on the boat in the first place, was because they had to take an illegal back channel to get there, because the actual proper way of immigrating there, and even as a refugee, is being significantly slowed down and hindered by these European countries. Okay, let's switch gears massively and turn our attention towards Hunter Biden.
President Biden's son, Hunter Biden. ABC News is learning he has reached a deal with federal prosecutors to plead guilty to 2 minor tax crimes and admit to the facts of a gun charge. That's according to court papers filed Tuesday. The terms would likely keep him out of jail. The Department of Justice has been navigating a politically sensitive investigation involving Hunter Biden's business activities. The charges relate to his taxes and whether he lied about his drug use on a gun application form in 2018. This investigation was led by the U.S. attorney in Delaware, appointed by former President Trump and kept on the job by President Biden and the Biden administration. The investigation does not involve President Biden.
A plea agreement has been reached, and Hunter Biden is pleading guilty to a federal misdemeanor charges of failing to pay his taxes. This is the first time charges have been brought against a sitting president's child, despite the numerous activities of Trump's children. But let's get into what they charged Hunter Biden with. According to NBC News, 2 sources familiar with the agreement told NBC News that it includes a provision in which the United States attorney has agreed to recommend probation for Biden for his tax violations. Legal experts also said that the tax and gun charges will most likely not result in any jail time for President Joe Biden's son. Now, the GOP obsession with Hunter Biden has now reached an all-time fever pitch for those who wanted serious charges on Biden's son. Representative James Comer claimed this was just a slap on the wrist. Says Hunter Biden is getting away with a slap on the wrist when growing evidence uncovered by the House Oversight Committee reveals the Bidens engaged in a pattern of corruption, influence peddling, and possibly bribery. I'm not going to read his full statement as he suggests because I don't give a single damn what the House Oversight Committee has found, considering who the majority in the House is now and who they're placing in charge of these types of investigations. They're anything, they're of course political in nature. But you notice he used the phrase slap on the wrist, and it seems that the conservatives have got their marching orders, and that is the phrase that they're going to be using moving forward. Because Elise Stefanik said the same thing essentially in a statement she released on Twitter. Says my full statement on Hunter Biden's slap on the wrist and the two-tier system of justice in America, which is so ironic that they keep reiterating that because America does have a two-tier justice system. But the two tiers are definitely not Joe Biden's son and Donald Trump. Donald Trump being the person who is apparently being unfairly treated by the American justice system. Now, of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene had to open her mouth and come out with this genuinely pretty hilarious response, blaming communists running our government allegedly. She says Hunter Biden pleading guilty to a gun charge and misdemeanor tax charges with no jail time is a stunt to make him look like he is just cooperating with the DOJ. Meanwhile, the pathetic and weaponized DOJ who protects their puppet president and refuses to prosecute Joe Biden and Hunter for taking bribes from Ukrainian oligarchs. I will pause there and say they did actually investigate to see if there were charges they should bring about for Hunter Biden as far as his business dealings with Ukraine went. They determined there were none. So the thing that she wanted to happen, at least the investigation did happen. But she continues on, raking in millions of dollars from foreign countries because the big guy makes policy decisions to help his customers are the real crimes that Biden should be charged with. I don't know if she lost her train of thought or even had a train of thought in the middle of that or what happened at the end there. But she finishes by writing, oh, but hey, look at Jack Smith trying to throw President Trump in jail for 100 years for illegally possessing documents he's allowed to possess, not allowed to possess them under the Presidential Records Act. We are controlled by communists. Woz, are you satisfied with the communist presidency of Joseph Robinette Brandon?
I can say unequivocally that I am not satisfied with the alleged communist regime in the White House right now. This is a joke. The idea, like, and I need to say this as much times. Like Donald Trump had a fake school. Right. Like, he had a fake school. They took him to court. He lost. He was shown to be defrauding people with a fake school, dude. And this guy was able to become president directly afterwards. Nobody sent them to crime for the fraud of normal working people. Because guess what? You don't really go to jail when you're rich and elite for committing crimes against poor and working people. Right? They come after you when you come at the power structure. And yes, you gotta pay Uncle Sam. That's the ultimate. That is the ultimate power. And if you don't pay Uncle Sam, they will come after you. And yeah, Hunter Biden, he should get whatever's coming to him. I hope he gets, some help with some of his substance issues and all that stuff. And like, I hope he's good. I hope he gets better. But like, this is not some anomalous occurrence. This is what happens to rich, powerful people and their children. Like they're gonna get nice little deals in their dealings with the law. I bet you Donald Trump is not gonna get the book thrown at him. That's just not how that works when it comes to presidents. And so yeah, I'm good on Marjorie Taylor Greene's explanation that the commies in America and the freaking Democratic Party are running our country.
Right, and I think that just his struggles with drug addiction, I think that honestly the conservatives are really maybe mishandling the messaging here. I think a lot of parents understand what it's like to have a son that struggles with drug addiction or being involved in crime, and I really think it makes Joe Biden look more sympathetic than anything. So I think that they've really done a huge misstep there. Let's move into this next story, and maybe my favorite story I've ever covered of all time.
Hey guys, this is a story of my business getting broken into last night at 3 o'clock in the morning. This guy showed up around 3 o'clock and decided to just hang out for a while. He sat outside for about 15 to 20 minutes, honestly knocked on the door, just sat there, hung out, chilled and vibed. And then I guess he got bored sitting there and decided to kick the door in. So that was really great. He really carefully gets into the door. So shout out at my guy on the glass safety, walks himself right into my bakery at probably 3:30 in the morning at this point. And he walks around for a while. Then he decides to take a rest. He must be really tired from breaking into my business. So he sits down for, I don't know, a solid 10, 15 minutes, goes to the bathroom. And then I guess he realizes that he's made a huge mess with all of the broken glass. So he finds the mop and mop bucket and starts cleaning up his glass mess.
How sweet. A criminal desperate for a cupcake broke into Sweet Something Bakery in Vancouver, Canada last month, then half-heartedly attempted to clean up his mess. Now, the burglar eventually left, but not before grabbing a snack and leaving some more evidence behind.
Cleaning up his glass mess. Honestly, gotta love a criminal who is at least respectful. A respectful king. We love to see it. He didn't do a very good job, though. He left us these selfies, like some nice gifts on the store phone. And after all that, he was in the business for about an hour and 10 minutes. And the only thing he walked out with was 6 chocolate champagne cupcakes. So I hope they're good, bro. Next time, just ask. We'll be happy to give you the 6 cupcakes. Have a good one.
I think we need to take a closer look at those selfies. We've got the pictures here. There they are. Beautiful. I'm sorry. This guy is out of his mind. This guy's either, I would assume he's super wasted right now. And who amongst us hasn't been so drunk that we needed junk food immediately? Although I think most of us wouldn't take it to the extreme of breaking and entering to get it. But the story actually has a really happy ending because in true Canadian fashion, he called to say he was sorry.
Hey, TikTok, ask and you shall receive. Let's do some updates while my door gets fixed and I work on an order for tomorrow. So the big news is that our burglar gave us a call to the bakery. He spoke to my staff and we were able to arrange a time for him and I to have a conversation. He profusely apologized. You could tell it was really sincere, and he has offered to pay for the door and for the cupcakes. We've asked the police not to press charges, so we really hope that that's what happens. But him and I had a good laugh together. I told him I'm not mad or upset. He told me that maybe one day we could sit down together and have a cupcake and just talk about the situation. And he also told me that he would give me his orange sunglasses, which I am dying for. I feel like I would wear them all the time just to, make light of the situation.
So their door is fixed. And speaking of those orange sunglasses, Emma, the owner, actually made some cookies to celebrate the event. Here they are, the orange sunglasses. Woz, this is how you want these stories to end, right? Like, obviously, This guy is not a career criminal. He was drunk.
Yeah, ideally, this is how a community sort of works, right? This guy got absolutely cooked, probably had one too many Molsons, and then ended up in that cupcake shop pilfering the goodies. But yeah, he's gonna pay for the damages. He said he's sorry. He's making good on his mistake. Proud of this young man for owning up and taking accountability and responsibility for his mistakes. This is a really heartwarming story. And shouts to that store owner for not being a complete joy kill. And understanding that in our youths, Ray, we would get drunk and sometimes things would get broken. That's just how it went every now and again. But I'm glad that everybody turned out okay in the end for this.
Exactly. This is a mistake that could have ruined this guy's life. And instead, the owner, was willing to be understanding about it and even to ask the police not to press charges against him. So that's really heartwarming. Great story to end on. Woz, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Remind the people where they can see you and your work.
Yeah, of course. Make sure you check out theringer.com and all of our NBA coverage. We'll be covering the draft and free agency in the coming weeks. So if you have even a passing interest in the NBA, check us out on theringer.com. And then check me and Nando Vila out on the Woke Bros every single Friday, wherever you get your podcast. Woke Bros.
All right. Well, thank you, Woz, and thank you all for watching today. I'll be back tomorrow with more watch lists. So we'll see you all then.